Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Frank Lusko, VP of Managed Services Sales for Red River Managed Service. We had an excellent event yesterday, a well-attended Microsoft Teams live webinar, and we had so many great questions that came out of that. We tried to answer as many as we could during the event, but we thought that we might go ahead and do another recording and ask those questions to the entire group and then get them answered by one of our practice leads and experts in Microsoft Teams, Mr. Brian Charles, who's also joining me on this call. So let's get started with that and we'll get rolling through this. We're also going to post this, we'll give you some information as to exactly where this is going to be posted. I think we're also going to push it out on LinkedIn. So this information in this recording will be available to you afterwards as well. Okay, let's start with one of the first questions here that came up yesterday. Brian, what's the maximum number of people we can have in a Teams meeting? Okay.
250 users, and that's just a limit of the system, but you get 250 users with any Teams license.
All right, great. And then I believe we can do the second question here is, so can you just run a webinar without buying extra equipment? You know, just live event plus a computer and mic, or do you need phones and other equipment?
You can run it with what you have. So if you have a workstation that has a microphone, speakers, and a camera on it, you can go ahead and do a live event. The more equipment that you have, the more production value you have, but you can do it with, like we're doing right now, all of our laptops that were company issued at home.
Okay. And question number 3 comes in. Okay, so question number 3 comes in. Are you able to set up a group and call all the people in that group with one click to have a teleconference?
Yep. So even if it's not like an official team and you're just collaborating with a group of coworkers, at any time you can hit the phone icon that's in the top right or the video icon in the top right and elevate that chat conversation to a video call or a teleconference immediately.
Excellent. So how do you share your screen during a call?
So if you hover over the Teams meeting while when the box that has the 4 people, you will see the help bar pop up, and right in the middle there will be a rectangle with an up arrow. Click on that to select the content that you want to present into the meeting.
Okay, that sounds pretty simple and straightforward. How do you integrate your Outlook calendar with a Teams calendar?
So the calendar that's in the Teams interface to the left is automatically going to be pulling in all the events from your Exchange Online calendar. There's no additional steps that you have to do. You can schedule a Teams meeting on your Outlook calendar, or you can schedule it directly inside the Teams interface.
Okay, good question. So I'm waiting for this red box to pop up before I talk, so excuse for the pause there. We're switching back and forth on audios here. This is a cool way to kind of have this conversation with you all. Is there a way to get the info you put into the wikis out of Teams in a decent format?
Sort of. So there is no direct export feature inside of Teams wikis yet. That's on the feature release board. It's on the roadmap. However, you can get to all the data if you go to the SharePoint site that's automatically created whenever a Teams is spun up. So clicking over into SharePoint, go to the site contents of that SharePoint, you'll see the Teams meeting data, and you'll be able to download the document, open it up in Outlook, and see all the content there.
Excellent. All right, so another user is having trouble creating a team when some members are not within the organization. That's if they don't have Microsoft Teams already.
So Microsoft Teams and having that on your machine is a requisite for you to be able to be added to a team. There's also the permissions that are in your personal tenant. So if your administrators have set it up that you can't invite external resources, they won't be able to join. However, as mentioned before, Teams comes with any Office 365 suite. So if they're in Exchange Online or something like that, they probably already have the license to Teams. They can go ahead and get it out, install the application. There's also a freemium version for if you're working with a direct consultant who doesn't have an Office 365 account, they can create a Microsoft Teams freemium account and then be added to your team.
Very good. Okay, so if I'm on a Teams video meeting, okay, can I add somebody via a phone call?
Yes, you can, if you have Teams calling added to your tenant. So for ourselves over at Red River Managed Services, we have Teams calling enabled. So our phone system is the Teams client. If you have that enabled and you're in a meeting, you can go to the participants list in the top right, type in a phone number and pull that person in.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, just as a check, we're kind of going back and forth in conversation. And for the viewers that are on there, you're not seeing the production side of this. But what's happening right now is we have Corinne in the background handling the production. So she's actually switching the speaker from person to person. And so a little red box pops up when it's my turn to speak, and then a red box pops up around Brian's figure when his turn is ready to speak. So I'm hoping that we're not, cutting Brian's conversation off in the beginning. So we're going to make sure we have a little pause between questions and answers. We'll wait for that red box to pop up so we don't make sure you guys don't miss any of the conversation that we're hearing. Okay, so with that, I'm moving to the next question. So say I'm hosting a meeting with my fellow teachers and we want a parent to come in for only a portion of the meeting. Can I disconnect with the telephone call without closing out the video conference?
Yes. So just like the question previously, can you add someone into a meeting when it's appropriate? You can do the same thing if you're having a conference among teachers and then need to bring in a third party. After you've gotten all the information from that person, they can hang up the call and leave, or you can remove them from the call so that they can't get back in.
Cool. That's great. That's really convenient. How about a whiteboard feature where team members or meeting members can write during a meeting?
Yes, so Microsoft has a Microsoft Whiteboard. It is integrated directly into Teams, and you can click it in the top or the resources that are in the team, get to a whiteboard. This whiteboard can be accessed on iPhones, it could be accessed on iPads or other devices to improve the writing process, and multiple people can contribute to the whiteboard at the same time.
Great. All right. How about now we're talking planner, okay? Can you view your planner tasks in the Teams activity field?
Yes, you can, sort of. So just like when new activities come in that require your attention and it shows up in the top left of your Teams window, you can have it set up so that any new planner task that gets assigned to you shows up there as well. The best place to figure out where all the tasks that are assigned to you is directly into your feed inside of Planner. But there's also some integrations with other Microsoft utilities like To-Do, which is a handy little application that can pull directly in Planner task. It could pull in flagged emails, all sorts of other things that may be requiring your information to help you prioritize.
Okay. Right, I think I've used that new To-Do feature to replace the old Contacts feature, and I was able to tie Planner in with the To-Do, so I can just go right there to see whatever's sitting there waiting for me, right? Yep, cool. Okay, how about as a new user of Teams, what is the best way to learn the different items that Teams offers so that I can teach others in my organization?
Well, one of the things that we do for our managed service customers is we offer a self-help training portal where you can go in, see what you know about the application, and it'll help give additional tips and tricks. In addition to that, you can just go on YouTube. There is a ton of information out there. Open up Teams, figure out what feature you're trying to look for, or some generic how-tos, and follow along.
Right, so we call that service our Cloud Assist Academy, and it's powered by a tool called Brainstorm. And in there, each user will be asked a series of questions to kind of test their proficiency in the various Microsoft apps. You can pinpoint Teams as one of those, and it will set up a curriculum for that person to learn the various features of Teams. There's also live scheduled training sessions available on it, a great self-help tool. It's an excellent tool. Again, it's called Cloud Assist Academy, powered by Brainstorm. Okay, next question. Where do meeting notes save outside of Teams?
So the meeting notes save inside the actual meeting that was created. If you're looking for a Teams meeting, notes from a meeting, you can go back to your calendar, go back to that day, click on it, and look at all the information as it was typed in. You can always copy the information somewhere else if you wanted it more readily available, like OneNote.
Okay, great. So we're about turning the corner here, about halfway through. Can you talk about using Teams externally with clients? I notice each team auto creates a SharePoint site. So what permission level is required?
So when you've added external users to a team, all the permission is handled in the background for you. So there's default owners, and then there's members of the team, and owners have different controls that can be set on the team versus members. For example, you can set it up so that owners can moderate chat sessions, remove content that isn't with the company policy, things like that, but then not allow members to change things. So you don't really have to do anything in SharePoint. Once you've added a person to the team, they will be able to view, collaborate with everyone else because it's handled in the background for you.
Oh, this next question is one I can't wait for. Also, and I'm sure this is answered somewhere online, but how can I have multiple Teams windows open? So let's say a chat window, a OneNote window, and maybe a general Teams window.
I wish I had a better answer for now. That feature is currently in development and testing. It is a highly requested feature. I mean, you think we're using Windows, so we'd be able to have multiple windows, right? But they're working on it. The latest update that I saw on the forums was February. So hopefully soon this feature will be available for everybody.
Okay, and here's another one for live events specific to the event we're running today. Is there a way to allow attendees to ask audio questions, or is it just done through the Q&A panel?
Right now, live events Q&A is done through the Q&A panel, so you can't bring an attendee in to answer a live question.
All right. Moving on. Can a group calendar be added to Teams rather than my personal calendar?
Not yet. This is another one of those highly requested features to be able to bring in the group calendar that's already created when your group is spun up, maybe add it to a tab or something like that. There's some workarounds, but none of them work well enough that I would recommend for anybody, but not right now.
Okay. All right, and another question about live event is it bundled in normal Teams account, or is it separate add-on service? Using Teams now, have not seen anything related to live event. They hosted a meeting with 70 attendees recently, so they would have liked to have used live event to control the muting and the handling of questions from the attendees.
So live events is bundled in with Teams. There's no additional license needed, and you can have up to 10,000 participants added to that meeting. If you are having trouble setting up a live event, it's pretty straightforward. You can go inside of Teams, go to the calendar, and then you'll be able to, when you're creating a new meeting, before you double click and start putting in the information in the top right, there'll be a drop-down box next to meeting. Select it, choose live event, and then you'll be able to get set up from there.
All right, so we have a chat question here again. So can you delete old chats that aren't needed anymore?
You can, as long as someone hasn't prevented you from doing so. Again, Teams is used in the corporate setting, so a lot of times administrators will want to make sure that various information is preserved inside of Teams. So if your company allows it, then you can go ahead and delete chats.
Okay, here's a good question too. So if you have a team already created, right? How can you invite the team into the video meeting, okay, without having to type each individual user in?
One of the things that you can do when creating a Teams meeting through the Teams application is choose a channel that represents where this meeting should be. Some advantages of that is if the meeting is recorded, then it'll show up in the conversation thread of the channel utilizing Stream. But any of the members who are part of that channel without typing in their name inside of the attendees, they'll automatically get added to the optional list and receive an email through Outlook.
Right, so when creating that meeting, there's an option to select the channel from that team, and all the members of that channel obviously will get the invitation. And I think we might have another question about private channels coming up, so I'll hold that thought, but there's a way to control, you know, who can participate in those particular meetings or who you send the invitations out to. All right, are all members of a team also members of each collaboration? Or can you restrict some team members from different collaborations? Here's our private channels question.
Yes, by default, everyone is a member of all the channels and can collaborate on everything. But there is a new feature that was released recently that allows private channels. So if you are utilizing Teams for additional things like bringing in external users and you want to have an internal chat, or there's maybe some information that not everyone needs to have, you can spin up a private channel and have a subset of those users be added to it with a different set of restrictions.
Right, and I know through my experience, you have to create that up front. I don't think you can go back to an old channel and make it private anymore. It's pretty much you can't remove, you know, the participants that you want. All right, is there anyone to show all participants in a meeting? We have a team of 8, but can only see 4 at a time, right? You can only see the quad. Sorry.
Yeah, you can only see the quad, but there are some other things that you can do. If you want to have a key speaker or this is the primary person running the tenant, you can always pin them to your feed so that they'll always be showing.
All right, here's a question around using it for training, which is a great tool. Can you use Teams for live training while using another program like a demo, for instance, Kronos for payroll staff?
Absolutely. You can, using the share functionality that we talked about before, if there's a specific application that you wanted to give training on, simply invite all the attendees. You can share your desktop, you can share just the application, you can share a window, and then walk people along and ask them questions as they're going.
Great. Another user tried to add a notebook from OneNote, but was limited to the notebook that they could select. Is there a way to choose the notebook they want to add?
When you're adding a OneNote to a team channel in the top, you should be able to add any OneNote that your account has access to. I would need to know a little bit more about the situation or that exact scenario to figure out exactly what was going wrong there, but that is something you should be able to do normally.
Right, so far I've always had the ability to kind of create my own new notebook or to add an existing notebook that was already created. So yeah, there might be a question as to what that scenario was. Okay, getting down to the last 2 questions. Is there a way to manage large Teams meetings with a moderator who can mute everyone with loud background noise and use a hand raise function similar to other conferencing softwares?
So these are some of the permissions in the tenant. You can make have different things for presenters and attendees, even in a regular meeting, and then control things of what they're allowed to do. And people who are running the meeting have the ability to mute all the participants or some selected participants. And the raise hand feature is actually interesting because I believe it was 2 weeks ago or so, Microsoft released an update that now allows you to raise hand in Teams. If you're not seeing it, you will eventually. One of the benefits of having these SaaS applications is your IT team doesn't have to do anything to get these new features. They will just roll out to your tenant as Microsoft updates in the background.
Right, so when you hover over the screen and you see the toolbar, the show participants icon will pop up. You click that and there'll be a mute all button. Okay, that'll pop up on your kind of the right margin of your screen. And then we saw some simulations of the hand raise also kind of in that toolbar. So it's a pretty clear icon, you know, that shows a person raising their hand, and that's where it should appear. So we might wake up one morning and it'll be there. It's kind of how it works. All right, and finally, is there a way to moderate chat by combining message threads of similar content? Often users don't use the reply function and the chat can become disorganized quickly. One of my pet peeves, but I think this one is a behavioral deal that we just have to involve training.
Right now, there isn't a way to consolidate conversations, and we feel that pain as well. Generally, when people are starting to use Teams at first, they use that reply button that's at the bottom instead of the one that's actually in the conversation thread, and they're starting new conversations instead of keeping the content together. Moderators can delete different conversations to clean it up, or if you haven't turned off the ability to delete at all, anyone can do it. But there isn't a way to consolidate. You'll have to retype that information.
And there we have it. So we've answered about 99% of the questions, and I want to admit there are a couple of questions in here that we felt like we couldn't answer without having further discussion with the person that submitted, you know, those questions. So I will promise you, though, again, that we will reach out, and if you want to pursue, you know, responses to those questions, feel free again to reach out to us at connect@redriver.com. And we will make arrangements to have that conversation with me or with Brian or anyone that can help you answer that. Again, if you have any questions about the fast track incentive programs or the Teams workshop, we're good there. And finally, that would wrap up our Q&A. And is there something?
Sorry to jump in, Frank and Brian. We did have a few questions while we were actually in the webinar. I can kind of go over those with you guys. We have, is there an ability to have subgroups, segregating the team into sub-teams so not all chat and data is shared with everyone? Brian, can you answer that one?
I can, and that's again going back to our private channels. So if you have a reason for a subgroup, you create a private channel, and then you can have a different participants list. Now, what's happening in the background when you're creating a private channel, just so that and you're expecting this, is a second or another team site is being spun up in the background with different permissions. So if you start to see your team sites grow because you're using a lot of private channels, that's the reason.
All right. Actually, a number of people have asked this question. They're really interested in background blur. Can you show exactly where that is on your device? Or
Sure. On the ellipsis, when you hover over the screen, the three dots there, click that, and you should have a don't blur. Well, now mine is don't. Okay, so I'll click that, and you can see it unblurs it. And then I can go back up and click it again and blur my background.
Yeah, and that's a very important feature considering that the majority of us are now telecommuting. Being able to turn off what's going on in the background and not having your kids sneak up on you and interrupting live meetings and stuff like that is a very powerful feature.
Awesome, guys. That's all the questions. Last one is this video will be available online. We will be sending it out to everybody who attended, and we will be putting this up on our YouTube channel. So back to you, Frank.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your participation in this as well. And again, everybody stay healthy and happy, and hopefully we'll get out of this mess in a short order. But talk to you soon and look forward to some of our future events.